Hey guys, Probable1701 here, and today we are going to be talking about Doctor Who speeches. Now, the original version of this video was supposed to go up a few days ago, and it actually did go up, but the BBC blocked it because I did actually show footage on my television of the speech. I actually showed the speech from the episode, and because I wanted to have it fresh in y'all's mind when I talked about it, and for some reason the BBC didn't like it, so they flagged it. They didn't even flag it when it went live. They flagged it when it uploaded, so it must be like an automated process. So the video wasn't even live where anybody could see it, but the YouTube algorithm flagged it and blocked it, and that's why one of the videos was late the other day. I ended up having to move the video about why standard editions might be better than steelbooks now video to that day instead, and that's why that day's video was about 3 hours late coming because of that. So we're going to try it again and leave the TV part of it out. So basically in Doctor Who, there have been a lot of really good speeches, a lot of very famous speeches, especially in the modern series, also the classic series. You know, Troughton had his one from Tomb of the Cybermen. He also had his one from the Moon Base about some corners of the universe which have bred the most terrible things. Tom has his Do I Have the Right speech. And of course his Ark in Space speech about humans. Capaldi's had several good speeches. The Zygon speech, where I think that whole story is built around that speech, to be honest. He also has his I Do What I Do Because It's Right speech from the Dr. Falls. Matt Smith has his Rings of Akatan speech and his Pandorica Open speech. Christopher Eccleston has his Everybody Lives speech. There's a lot of very famous speeches in Doctor Who that people know and talk about and like. Colin even has a couple very underrated ones. His outburst to the Time Lords about Power Mad conspirators is really good. I also love his ones about, universe disperses, coalesces, reforms, other patterns, other worlds from mysterious planets. It's a really good speech. But the speech I'm going to talk about today is actually from Battlefield. It's the Seventh Doctor's speech at the end when he's confronting Morgaine over control of the missile. Because I really like that speech. I think it's really well written. I think it's executed pretty well, but it has some issues in the execution, which might be why it's not as well remembered. But it is a really, really good speech, and that's what we're going to talk about, because I feel like that speech is just as good as a lot of the others, especially in the actual written speech. And I feel like nobody ever talks about it. People don't really remember it. I feel like Battlefield is a bit underrated. Really, the only trouble I have with Battlefield is that the incidental music's awful. The incidental music for Battlefield is terrible. The rest of Battlefield's great. I love it. I love 26 in general. Season 26 is really, really good. There's no bad stories in it. It's one of the best seasons of the show's history. This original series went out on a really good note. But we're going to look at the speech and go over it. All over the world, fools are poised, ready to let death fly. Machines of death, Morgaine, screaming from above, light brighter than the sun. Not a war between armies, nor a war between nations, but just death, death gone mad. A child looks up into the sky, his eyes turn to cinders. No more tears, only ashes. Is this honor? Is this war? Are these the weapons you would use? Tell me. Now we're going to go over that again slowly to really let the words sink in, All over the world, fools are poised, ready to let death fly. Machines of death, Morgaine, screaming from above, light brighter than the sun. Not a war between armies, nor a war between nations, but just death, death gone mad. A child looks up into the sky, his eyes turn to cinders. Pretty vivid stuff here. No more tears, only ashes, because his eyes have turned to cinders, so he's only crying ashes at this point, not tears. Is this honor? Is this war? Are these the weapons you would use? Tell me. Because Morgaine is a very honorable character. If you've seen the story, you do know that she's not mustache twirling villain or anything. That's not Morgaine. She is a very, she's from, the King Arthur legend where honor was a big deal and all of that. And she is a very honorable person. You see this all throughout the story, like when she gives the lady in the bar her eyesight back, for example, to pay for the beers. Or when she doesn't engage in battle with the Brigadier because, they're sitting there doing the funeral thing, their own holy ground, all that stuff. You know, that's not a time for fighting. And she regrets, you know, that when she sees him again, she'll have to kill him. So she, you know, as she tells him. So she's not an evil character. She's a very gray character, and Jean Marsh does such a good job with her. She's so great in the role. That the Doctor is appealing to, you know, her honorable side, which works. If you've seen the story, this does work. She does stop the countdown. It's a good speech. There are, I mean, if you just hear the words, that's a really good speech. I love this speech. I think it stands right up there with a lot of the other more famous ones. Like, part of it is the execution. I think there are some issues, which I showed in the video in my original video when I played the video of the scene. I actually go over that. I'm going to actually leave a link down below to the scene so you can actually watch it yourself. Matter of fact, if you want to pause this video right now and go watch that, just so you're caught up on it, or if you've never seen it, feel free right now. Go ahead, click the pause button, go down there. I'll just be like, for a few seconds, and you can check that out. Or you might be thinking you can't tell me what to do, and you can just continue to watch. Whatever, I don't care. You know, it's your keyboard. Some issues I have with it. While Jean Marsh is great, Sylvester McCoy is like 90% great, but he makes a couple choices I don't feel are right. When he says brighter than the sun, I believe it is, he does that thing where he rolls his R. Brighter than the sun. I can't actually do it, but he rolls his R, and it seems wrong for that situation. I love the fact he can roll his R's. I wish I could do that. But it doesn't seem to quite fit the situation or the tone of the speech for him to do that right there. And then also when he says, tell me at the end. First off, that tell me I think doesn't need to be there. I think instead of saying, are these the weapons you would use, tell me, I think tell me, are these the weapons you would use, or just leaving the tell me off actually would have worked better for that. But the way he says tell me, he goes into that false voice he uses when he's trying to scream sometimes, that fake voice. I'll never forget my director. I was a theater major in college, actually. I have an associate's degree in art. And my director always getting on to me about your voice, use your voice, because I used to have a habit of that as well. And she would very specifically remind me, I'd hear her calling out, your voice, because he would go into that voice. He does the same thing earlier in the story in Battlefield when he does that, stop, there will be no battle here. You know, it's that very fake sounding scream that people tend to go, some actors tend to go into. And I love Sylvester McCoy, I love the Seventh Doctor, but anytime that happens, it always pulls me out of the story a bit. And I know that's not his real screaming voice, because I've seen the behind-the-scenes footage of basically when he saved Sophie Aldred's life, when that glass thing she was in shatters, and you hear him go, get her out of there! And he says it in just a loud scream in his normal voice. You hear him immediately when you hear that crack, you just hear him, get her out of there! And that's his normal voice. So when he goes into the tell me, I'm like, no, Sylvester's voice. But again, 90% of the speech he's great on. I really like him in that. And seeing them kind of wrestling with the umbrella, that does look a little choreographed. It looks a little staged. It doesn't really look like two people fighting over an umbrella. It looks a little, you know, two actors acting like they're fighting over an umbrella a little, to me. The incidental music there isn't great, and it's a little too loud. Not super too much, but it should have been better music that fit into the background better. A perfect example is like Capaldi's speech in the Zygon two-parter. I don't even know if there's any background music there or not. I cannot remember. Because if it is, it's done so subtly that it just blends into the background. Same thing with his Dr. Falls speech. I don't remember if there's actually any music there or not. Because if it is, it fits the tone and the mood so well that it doesn't run over the speech, which it kind of does here. It kind of gets in the way of the speech. More so than that, the biggest problem is that ticking clock. Because the clock is counting down to the missile going off, and that is ever present in this. First off, the sound it makes is like someone clicking their tongue. Gets annoying after a while, doesn't it? Yes, it does. And when you're listening to this really good speech and you have that going in the background the whole time loudly, it runs over the speech and kind of pulls you out of it. That's the only thing I can think when I was watching, because I did watch it several times before I even did that original video. And it's just, you know, a good speech is great, but when you have other sounds going on during the speech that are kind of running over the speech, I think it can pull away from it. And I think it's those things I think might be why people don't talk about this speech as much as, say, Tom Baker's Do I Have the Right speech, or John Pertwee's, you know, Courage Isn't a Matter of Not Being Frightened, you know, or Troughton's, you know, when he stands up to the Time Lords, you know, while you have been content merely to observe the evils in the universe. I think there's too much going on there that gets in the way of the speech, because it's a really good speech, as we saw here. Again, if you haven't watched it, actually go down to the link and watch it. It's a really, really good speech. I really like it. I feel like written on paper, it deserves to be up there with a lot of the others. God, would I have loved to have seen Capaldi give this speech. Oh, I think if the 12th Doctor had this speech, it would have been magnificent. It would have been amazing. I mean, I still like it even in Battlefield, but man, what he would have done with it. I would actually love, at a convention, for somebody to have Capaldi, as the 12th Doctor, read this speech. I think that could be pretty awesome. Give him a couple minutes to rehearse it, and let him have at it. Because I think that would have been really, really good, because Capaldi's so good with a speech. And it's a very vivid speech. I mean, it talks about death so much. You know, all over the world, fools are poised, ready to let death fly. Machines of death, Morgaine, screaming from above. Light brighter than the sun. You know, not a war between armies, nor a war between nations, but just death gone mad. You know, a child looks up into the sky, his eyes turn to cinders. You know, no more tears, only ashes. Is this honor? Is this war? Are these the weapons you would use? Tell me. Just, it's the words paint a very vivid picture. You know, it makes me think of like that scene in Terminator 2 when Sarah's dreaming about Armageddon and the bombs dropping. That scene was very vivid. It was very well shot, very well made, and that's kind of this on paper. You know, in words, verbally. This is verbally that. I get that kind of image in my head of just, you know, everything going. So it's a really good speech that I like. What do you think of this speech in Battlefield? Have you ever seen Battlefield? Now, having heard this video, do you want to see Battlefield? It's a really good story. It's the final story of the Brigadier in classic Doctor Who, which is another great point because Nicholas is great in it. So let me know what you think, not only of Battlefield, but I would also like to know if there are any speeches that you think don't get the credit they deserve. Maybe something from the 5th Doctor or the 6th Doctor, or maybe something else from the 7th Doctor, or even this speech. So comment down below and let me know not only what you think of this speech, but any speech you feel like is underrated and doesn't get the credit it deserves. Other things to do: click the like button, click the subscribe button, click the bell for notifications so you never miss out on another video. Most importantly, I almost forgot to mention, I still have my Patreon going. If you would like to become one of my patrons, there is a link to that down below. Entry-level tier is only $2 a month, and I should have a new poll going up for that soon. I'm not quite sure what it is, but soon. And again, a link to the actual Battlefield video should be in the description below if you want to watch that. Most importantly, stay safe out there, and thank you for watching.